Hi there, welcome to another episode of Anirvan in Conversation with Industry Experts. Today's topic is one of the most fascinating developments that has taken place in the world of digital innovation. While many of us are familiar with the migration of physical storage into the virtual space, cloud computing has gone much beyond that, and that is the discussion for today. Today's guest is one of the leading experts when it comes to cloud computing, Ajit Kumar Amit. Welcome, Ajit. It's good to have you in our interview today. Let's start with a brief introduction about you.
Thanks, Anirvan. My name is Ajit Kumar Amit. I'm from Agilitics. And Agilitics is a company which is focused on the cloud computing as well as big data implementation and training in this particular part of the world. We deliver a lot of trainings to Asia Pacific customer, where we could put the training on the let's say for the company like Fortune 500, and we have done a lot of consulting work as well. So I have been awarded as a Google Cloud Trainer of the Year 2019 for APAC, and we do a lot of consulting work for the different companies like DBS, like OVO, and so on and so forth.
Good to have you with us. Some of our viewers and listeners may not be very familiar with cloud computing as it stands today. What is cloud computing?
So cloud computing is a means and ways of doing the computing services without really owning the computing services. So over a period of time in the past, what we used to do, let's say we used to create, as a company, we used to create our own infrastructure. We used to hire the servers, we used to rent the place and put the servers on those rented places and connect the network and then try to use the servers and systems for our computing needs. And that was the capital expenditure model where we need to invest a lot of money, and it was not scalable and it was not responsive enough for the changing demand of the companies nowadays. So the companies like Microsoft, Azure, and Google came up with the ideas where they're giving you the servers and systems which you can use on demand basis, pay-per-use basis, which is much more cost effective, because right now you're not buying the servers, you're just renting from them. So if you want to rent out 10 servers, it's available based on the number of clicks, 1-2 clicks. If the same number of servers, if you want to go and buy from the market and put into your data center, it might take months. Here it is just taking minutes for you by just a couple of clicks. So that kind of flexibility and scalability which comes from the Google as well as all the different kind of cloud provider, where you can rent the server and put your computing needs as and when you require. Yeah. So that gives you a lot of advantage at any point of time when you, let's say, as a company, Amazon, I'm doing a big billion day sale, or let's say some kind of sale, and I require a lot of traffic I'm expecting from my customers on my servers. So for that particular duration, we can increase the number of servers in our systems, and then only for that particular duration, I'll be paying to the cloud provider. So it gives us, as a company, it gives us a lot of flexibility where let's say the cost can be saved. Instead of buying the server, it's a capital, instead of a capital expenditure model, it's a, operating expenditure model, and gives you a lot of flexibility and agility in your development process as well as support process for the customer. So cloud computing is nothing but renting the server and going for the next level of, let's say, the computing.
Do you think cloud computing is something where people should use it only when they need surge power or surge storage space? Or should they completely replace their existing physical storage they have in their premises?
My understanding of the process is, and the way we suggest to our customer is, it's not just about, when you have surge of the demand, then only you need to go to the cloud computing. Now, the cloud computing has different modalities of, let's say, uses. There is a software as a service, there is an infra as a service, there is a platform as a service. So in software as a service, some company like us, let's say we have created the software, let's say Salesforce or Workday, which you can just, by click of the button, you can ask them that, let's give me this, HR as a service, give me customer relationship as a service. So that is another aspect of the cloud computing where they can give you software as a service. So you don't have to install, deploy anything, just configure and you are ready to go. That's one part of it. So many people go ahead and they, instead of buying and installing a new software into their premises, they go for these kind of services. On top of it, many times people, like, let's say big companies, not just because of the surge of the demand, they want to go to the Google or let's say any other cloud provider. They want to make sure they are more agile enough. So they go to the lift and do the lift and shift. They move their own servers, virtual machines, and systems and network and storage all to the cloud provider, so they can scale up and down anytime, whenever they want. The last one is platform as a service, which is, let's say, frictionless. If you want to install, if you have a custom software, it's not commercial off the shelf software, it's a custom software, and that you want to deploy, where you want to focus on only on the logic, not on the infrastructure and the scaling and the monitoring, then you can go as a platform as service, where this kind of company, all the different cloud providers will charge you on per transaction basis instead of pay per provisioning. They will charge you for pay per use. So cloud computing is not just for those scaling part of it. It's not just for the surge of demand handling, but it's for the complete revamp of your infrastructure, where you are moving away from maintaining your own data center and relying on a third party to provide you the computing services.
A lot of the companies, I'm sure, who have spent thousands of dollars in creating their own physical storage space in-house, on-premise. Now with cloud computing, are you expecting them to move to cloud computing and let go of their expenses that they've made? What's your opinion?
So whenever you create your own infrastructure, again, just one thing which I want to correct, let's say cloud computing is not just about the storage services. It's a storage plus compute plus, let's say, networking. A lot of different kind of services comes under the cloud computing. So it's not just about storage. The storage movement is much more easier compared to moving the complete computing architecture into the cloud. Yeah. So if you have your own premises data center, again, it's easier said than done that you can move the as it is immediately. But the thing is, you have nowadays, the technology allows you to do lift and shift. All those companies initially, when they started giving the platform as service, means they wanted you to write a code from scratch, which was not possible for many of the companies. Then people realized, the companies realized that this is not something which companies are asking for. This is not the thing which customers are asking for. The cloud provider realized that particular fact. So they went there and made whatever customer is asking for. What customer is asking for? Give me a virtual machine so that I can migrate my own virtual machines into the cloud and pay me per usage, per delivery. So that's what the cloud computing company have invented themselves. And they created infra as a service where you can hire the services, storage, computing, and everything, and networking from the cloud computing companies. And you can do lift and shift. There is a migration tool exists which you can use to take your own server from on-premises and migrate easily and effectively without even downtime to the cloud. So ultimately, the world is moving towards the cloud because nobody wants to maintain their own infrastructure. Nobody wants to maintain, because if I'm a company, let's say if I'm an XYZ company, let's say I'm an Alibaba, maybe Alibaba is having a cloud provider as well. But let's take another example. For example, Flipkart. Flipkart is a retail company. They might not have a business to maintain their own data center. It's better given to the company like a cloud provider, like Google, like Amazon, who has the real business of maintaining those data centers. So my main business is, let's say, providing the services. So I'll be focusing on the providing the services instead of maintaining the data center itself of my own. So that's why people are going away and moving away from co-located data center and hosting services to the cloud provider, so that they have the economy of a scale, the point one. Second one is they have the scalability and reliability as well as security. The security is something which is very important in cloud, and all these cloud providers over a period of time have made sure the data is encrypted at rest as well as data in motion is encrypted. So no data can be leaked out from the system. Even if you take out the hard disk, for whatever reason you are able to get inside as a hacker or whatnot, still you will not be able to steal the data from there. So from a storage perspective, anyway you are moving. From computing perspective also, people are moving to the cloud, particularly for the smaller companies who in the past could not afford the servers and systems. Now with the click of button, they can rent out the server, see and do the proof of concept, see the demand, and based on demand, they can increase this and scale the services when they want, and those many countries they want. So right now, my point is not just the storage which need to be migrated, but the whole thing. It's not about the scrapping, because anyway, when you buy the server, when you buy the system, there's a lifespan. There's a limited lifespan of the system and services which you are buying. So anyway, there will be an end of life date. Instead of end of life date and doing patching and doing the tech refresh, you can migrate all of them to the cloud and let the cloud provider maintain that kind of upgrades and the tech refresh and the upgrading of technology and etc. and making sure redundancy is there, making sure scalability is there. So you are focused on the services instead of focusing on the technology itself. So my vision says, my perspective says that the whole thing is anyway moving to the cloud. It's not just about storage. slowly, I expect at least 70 to 80% of the company will be using cloud providers instead of creating their own data center. Because all the new age companies, nobody creates their own data center. If you take the name of any XYZ, let's say, for example, Snapchat uses the multiple different cloud provider to do the storage as well as the computing services. So these kind of new age company anyway going to from the natively cloud native companies, and then existing company, they have infra as a service to do lift and shift. Anyway, most of the companies are going to the cloud, and the investment which we have made in the past, we can retain for now. But when we are doing the tech refresh, at that point of time, we can migrate to the cloud straight by utilizing the tools and technology given by the cloud provider.
So in the past, as you know, a kind of scenario we used to have is the IT department used to be end of the corridor. And if we had some problems with our applications or any other aspect of IT, we could just walk up to them and get them to resolve our issues. But with cloud computing, how do you manage that?
So cloud computing doesn't mean your developers are going away. It's just that admins are going away. So right now, all these cloud provider companies are giving you the service level agreement as a company to company, where they're saying that for this particular service, for the servers and systems, they're guaranteeing you the way they have created, the way they have designed, they call it as a SRE, site reliability. So for the site reliability, they're giving you 99.99, 29, 39, 49, sometimes it's a 79 and 89 kind of services to you, which is 100% guaranteed. Even if you have still the problem, you can always raise a ticket and get in touch with your service provider. So it's a very easy to get support from the cloud provider. They have the dashboards, they have the systems by which you can see and manage their system. Let's say if any problems, you should be able to figure out very quickly. And most importantly, that's where they have all the different, at any point of time in any country, they have at least 3-4 data centers. And in case for one particular data center is going wrong, they can switch over the services to the next one. So at any point of time, you don't expect the similar kind of downtime or similar kind of problems which you used to face during your own IT days. And even if you have the problem, the cloud providers will be ready to solve that particular problem because they have the means and ways of probing and figuring out what's going on. And they provide you the tool for doing all these things, which is called a stack driver for monitoring, logging, monitoring, and observation. They provide you those tools by which you should be able to figure out all by yourself what is going wrong in my system.
One of the common questions that I often hear from large organizations as well as mid-sized organizations is around security. They fear that if they move to cloud computing, that there is going to be real questionable security issues that they may have to face.
Security-wise, all these cloud providers, particularly in Google Cloud, the way they have designed the security, data at rest and data in motion, both of them are encrypted. If you don't trust their encryption level, you can bring your own encryption keys. If you don't trust their encryption keys, you can rotate the keys all by yourself. So the thing is, the way they store the data, for example, if you put a needle in a haystack and if you have a metal detector, you will be able to figure out where's my needle. If the same needle is broken down into thousands of pieces and put inside the many different haystack, even if you have a metal detector, you will not be able to figure out. And that's the way cloud providers stores their data. First of all, it's a encrypted data, and as well as it has been chopped into many pieces and stored in different data center and servers, which as a hacker or for security purposes, they will not be able to figure out, even if they have that where is the data, which particular cloud provider is putting the data. So data security wise, from the architecture wise, from the infrastructure security wise, making sure that authorized person is getting the access, all of them has been done, and all these cloud providers have made sure that they are complying to the world standard of ISO 27001 and whatnot, all the different kind of standard, PCI DSS, HIP, AAA. So all those standards have been complied by these companies. So nowadays, all these companies, whether it is a financial organization or healthcare organization or insurance company, are easily migrating to the Google or any such kind of cloud provider because it has already been proven secured. Multi-tier cloud security is there in the systems. So security is by default inbuilt in this kind of system. You don't have to recreate or encrypt your data which is there. Anyone from the Google or Amazon will not be able to read the data because data at rest is encrypted. Even I'm the employee, It's not like I have access to the server, I'll be able to read it because I will not have the keys to decrypt the data. Only customer will have the key.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important point. The security, especially likes of Google and Amazon and Microsoft, the number of people and the sophistication that they can put in their security is definitely not achievable by most of the other companies, which are a non-tech, non-cloud providing company. One of the other aspects that is now surfacing is to do with GDPR, the personal information protection that came out a couple of years back in Europe. And people are talking about storing the data in the country where the data originates. What's your view? How is that being managed across the globe?
Slowly what's happening is these kind of rules are coming in most of the country, like similar to the rule of GDPR. Indonesia have their own rules where they say data residency requirement, data will not move out of my country. Yes, there are a lot of sensitivities there around the data, maybe the storage part of it, maybe they want to track what is the communication going on, who's writing for or against the government, or let's say, those kind of things are coming into picture. So people, all the countries are having that kind of a sticky point that data has to be in my country. For example, in Middle East, they might not be very much comfortable with the American companies because again, the same data residency requirement. So what is happening is all these companies, let's say whether it is Google, whether it's Amazon, whether it is Microsoft, all these companies to tackle that particular problem, they are creating the country-wide data center. For example, Indonesia have their data center residency requirement. Just recently, 15 days back, Google Cloud has opened a region. Region means a couple of data centers, 3 data centers to be specific, in Jakarta. Google Cloud new region, so that they can tackle that requirement of government to store the data in the country. Same goes for GDPR. If the data has to reside in the European Union, so you can select a data center in Netherlands or whichever is the European Union data center, and data will reside in there. At any point of time, it's not just about the data. If you want to store the system as well on those data center, that is also possible. If you want a bare metal server, that is also possible. So all those possibilities exist where decision is up to you whether you want to store the data into one region, multi-region, multi-country, or you want to spread across the world. So it's up to you. Maybe if it is just a website for information purposes, you might want to spread across the world. But for the data which is need to be analyzed locally, you don't want to put that over the world. So in that cases, you can select which region, which country, which data center I want to store the data, I want to put the system, I want to put the network.
Got it. One of the questions that I had for today is when it comes to cloud computing, a lot of people think it's a technology play, it's IT guys need to get involved, manage the whole piece. In your experience, are there other functions that need to get involved with cloud computing projects?
So cloud computing is natively, I would say it's a part of digital transformation. So whenever there is a digital transformation initiative by corporate strategy and planning, cloud computing has to be there. So cloud computing is not just an IT endeavor. It need to be driven by the company who wants to do the digital transformation, who want to use the analytics, who at a scale, who want to do big data analytics. So all these things are nowadays is part of the cloud computing itself. Because nobody wants to create their infrastructure for distributed computing where thousands of servers are there. So they go to the Google, to any of the cloud provider. Nobody wants to do, let's say, nobody can do, or let's say even if they can do, it's a very complicated to do the scale and manage of DevOps and the agile development. So in that cases, all this cloud computing has to be driven by digital transformation team, which is basically part of the corporate strategy and planning, not just the IT team.
So another question for you that I have is, you mentioned about private cloud computing and public cloud computing. At the same time, you also mentioned about Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. So maybe let's first talk about private and public, and then talk about the similarities and differences between the three mega players in the public cloud computing domain.
So from the private cloud is more about setting up your own infrastructure, making sure that the infrastructure which you have can be used for many different purposes. But still, it is sitting in your own data center. So if you want to scale beyond your servers, there's a limitation. It's not economy of scale. But many times, like government kind of companies, they want to make sure that data is protected, and then it's more sensitive that they create their own private government cloud kind of stuff. But nowadays, government is also kind of realizing that there's no point in creating their own private cloud. where public cloud, slice of the public cloud can give them the more features to that. So a lot of companies, like we just recently heard that Microsoft wants a big tender from the US defense team. So there are a lot of such kind of things are coming in. So private cloud is a means and ways of configuring your computing services as if it is a part of your big thing, and which slice can be taken away as you need by click of the button. But still, that's a little bit inflexible on the scaling part of it. Then comes, let's say, the public cloud. So the public cloud provider, there are three major players which are there: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. So as you said, I need to compare. I don't want to say positive or negative about anybody else, but I just want to compare on that particular part. Amazon is the one who has realized that what customer wanted, and they started giving up the infra as a service. So they are the pioneer and they are the leader right now on the top level. They are the first player, the biggest player of the cloud computing service provider, followed by Azure. Azure is the second number cloud provider who has always been in the enterprise play. Their software, whether it's a Microsoft SQL Server, whether it's analytics services, whether it is big data services on Azure Databricks, whether it is Microsoft Dynamics, their cloud is picking up because they have good sales capability, as well as their already existing customer is on Office 365. But the unique value proposition comes from the Google. Google was the company who has set up the worldwide infrastructure in the day one, because they are the one who required worldwide infrastructure for Google search engine. So they created the worldwide infrastructure from the day one, but then they realized much later from the other people, they were offering the platform as service, which is Google App Engine in the past, since 2007. They were the pioneer in cloud computing as well, but they were offering the wrong services to the, I would say not so wrong services, I would say it was too early a service they were offering to the customer. People didn't realize the value at that point of time. They said, why rewrite my whole code for your platform? Whereas other provider, they started giving the lift and shift capability. So later point of time, Google realized their mistakes and they corrected it, and now they meet wherever the customers are. Customer is asking for big data, Hadoop, they gives the cloud data proc, which is the actual replication. Even if they have the better service, which is BigQuery, but then they say, okay, you know that this particular tool, I'll give you this particular tool to do the lift and shift. Later point of time, you want to do big bang approach of migrating to the, the latest and greatest, you can do that. But the first step is this one. So these are three different providers. The good thing about the Google is they are the one which is having at least 8 products which is used by billions of people on a daily basis, and their infrastructure is capable of doing much more than anybody else. And their basic fundamental is they will not create data center anywhere in the world unless they have their own fiber optic networks in those particular part of the world, not the leased line, their own fiber optic, which makes them a great player into the cloud computing, because most of their network perspective, their fiber optic network, there is a cable, C cable, all of them owned by the Google itself. And when you communicate between the region, between the country, between the continent, the data moves within their private clouds, within their data, the pipes, instead of going through the external vendor and then getting inside the country. So which gives the much more performance to you. And it's a proven infrastructure. Same infrastructure is being used by YouTube, or it's a Gmail and all those things, which is being provisioned to you. So you are in a unique advantage of utilizing the Google services for your own cloud computing needs.
This is very insightful, Ajit. Cloud computing has come a long way from just being physical storage in the virtual space, followed by computing. What's in your opinion, how are we going to see over the next 3 to 5 years in this space?
So my opinion is that the world is moving towards the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. When I say multi-cloud, initially there was only one vendor or two vendor who has monopolized this particular cloud computing. So when they monopolize, as a customer, I don't like it, because ultimately it's like if it is one vendor, whatever they're asking for, I have to pay for it. There's no choice for me, because if I want cloud computing, only one vendor. But now slowly what's happening is when the multiple vendors are providing me services, I can bargain. Another thing is I'm seeing in the longer run that most of the people will be going for open source technologies, which is compatible with all the different kind of providers. Something which works on Google, something which works on Amazon, something which works on Microsoft. If all of them are working, then only I buy that particular product. So that any point of time, I have the bargain power as a customer perspective. So multi-cloud is going to be the future. Hybrid cloud is another one, because now when I said, let's say almost 70 to 80% of the people will migrate to the cloud, again, it will never be 100%. Still, there will be certain number of people, certain number of companies who want to maintain their own data center. Maybe not a full-fledged version of it, but maybe only 10% of the servers. And that server need to be integrated inside the cloud provider, public cloud provider data centers. So that's a hybrid cloud. You can say it's a networking concept itself, but it's a hybrid cloud where your servers becomes the part of the big picture of the Google, let's say Google or let's say Amazon or whatnot. So that's another way. Third thing which we are looking at is containerization, dockerization of your applications. So instead of writing a monolithic big applications, people are creating the microservices which will go and sit inside a cluster of the Kubernetes. So your whole data center will be treated as a pool of resource. So there is no downtime per se. If one server goes down, there is no downtime. There is two server goes down, there is no downtime. It's not like in the past where you used to get a call in the night saying, okay, this server is down, please make it up. So right now it will be a pool of resource, and from the pool of the resources will be extracted and will be given to the application. So even one particular server goes down, you don't have any downtime because the application is still running. You can fix it in your own pace. That's where the site reliability comes into picture. So containerization will be the future for packaging the applications. Microservices will be the future. And to run that container, Kubernetes will be the de facto standard, which is being offered by all the different cloud providers, whether it's Azure Cloud's Kubernetes engine, whether it's Amazon Kubernetes engine, or whether it's a Google Kubernetes engine. Everybody will be providing this Kubernetes, which will be de facto standard for running applications in container. And that will drive the multi-cloud facility as well, where people will install even the Kubernetes on premises and connect to the multiple clouds. So those are the future which we see from complicated technical perspective. I'm giving you hardcore technical instead of just management view, but it's a hardcore technical, that these are the way I see the technology is going. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, containerization of applications, lifting and shifting and migrating your own traditional virtual machines into as a container and running through the container, through container orchestration service, which is Kubernetes. Kubernetes is going to be the biggest invention of, let's say, this, at least the next couple of decades, I would say. So that's about, let's say, the future of cloud, which I see here. And most of the company, slowly, all those newest companies, those are digitally native, but all the SME will go to the cloud because they don't have any business in maintaining their own cloud. Big company will have 10% of the system or 20% of the system on their data center, 80% of still will be on the cloud providers, public cloud providers. So that's the way I see.
So you must have seen a lot of challenges in organizations while they're using cloud computing. What are some of the tips that you would like to share with the people regarding those challenges?
So the most important challenges inside implementing, let's say, any of the cloud computing projects or initiatives is the resources itself. If the resources are not knowledgeable, if they don't know, it's like cloud infrastructure is like your city infrastructure. If you don't put your pipeline first and you put the road first, then you have to dig that road once again and then put the pipeline again and then to recreate everything. So which will not be very good, let's say, the means and ways. We have to understand that architecture-wise, it's very important to understand cloud. What is the cloud? What are the services which it provides? What are the different, same thing can be done in 5 different ways inside the cloud, which is the best way for my use case. So my suggestion to any of the organization would be that invest in the knowledge building of your team, or at least get one team member, or let's say 2 team member, or 5 at least architects, or for that matter. Make sure that they have the solid understanding of the cloud. And once they have the solid understanding of the cloud, at the same time, invest in building the knowledge pool of all the team members of your IT. Because ultimately, future of IT is cloud. I'm giving a big statement. Future of IT is cloud. In fact, right now itself, the cloud computing is booming. But future is slowly, all those DBA work, or let's say the server administrator work, and slowly, those jobs will be going away. Whether it will be the cloud engineer, cloud architect, those kind of roles will be coming in. Or data engineer, those kind of roles are coming in. DBAs will be automated job where automatically the Google will understand, okay, these many servers, these many databases are there, I had to scale up or I had to do performance tuning, whatnot. So that will be done automatic through the robots and all. But more information will come into picture when you have the knowledge pool. If you have the right amount of knowledge, finding out the right guy skill set is very, very difficult in the cloud implementation, which frustrates any of the company. And many times we have also seen that if you don't have the right amount of knowledge and you just go ahead and implement just like that anything, or you try to do a big bang approach as well. That's another part. There's one way is that we are starting very small and we are not progressing at all. We just moved one server, then we are looking at it. Another way is that we are trying to do very big bang project where we are trying to migrate, let's say, thousands and thousands of servers in one go. So both of them are not the right approach, I would say. I would say middle ground is always better, where you migrate a set of servers, see how the performance, Then after doing the lift and shift, then you think about, okay, how do I go away from the infrastructure service to serverless, where I don't care about the server. I only care about the services which I receive. So serverless is the future. So how to go about the serverless is something which, again, people should be thinking about. And that's something who can think only when people have the knowledge. So that's about understanding. The most important critical factor for implementation is backing from the management, corporate strategy and planning, that we need to go digital, we need to go on the cloud, we need to make sure we are the operating expenditure company instead of capital expenditure company. Yeah, so in that case, management support is required, technology skill pool building is required, right kind of resources are required. If these things are not there, it's very hard to achieve any kind of cloud implementation or digital transformation projects inside the organization.
This has been a fascinating discussion. I'm sure there are some viewers and listeners who would like to continue the conversation. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
You can search me on LinkedIn. I'll be the only one, Ajit Kumar Amit, my full name. And you can also get in touch with me on amit at agilitics, agilitics.sg.
Excellent. We'll share these details in the description box of the YouTube video as well as in the podcast. Ajit, this was a wonderful conversation, and I would like to thank you and hope to see you again in the near future.
Thank you so much, Anirvan.
So this was Anirvan in Conversation with Industry Expert, and today we were joined by Ajit Kumar Amit, an expert on cloud computing. If you liked this interview today, then do not forget to press the like button. And if you want to listen and see more of these interviews in the future, then do not forget to subscribe to our channel. With that, I would like to say have a nice day and bye-bye till next time.